Hello, fiber enthusiasts. I'm Cindra Kirscher, Program Manager with the Livestock Conservancy and the Shave 'em to Save 'em initiative, and I'm here with an exciting announcement for you today. We're having another fiber challenge. Many of you have asked for this one, and we're finally giving it to you. But before I tell you more, I'd like to introduce my special guest today, Melissa Weaver Dunning. Melissa is a hand weaver, spinner, and knitter with over 40 years experience working on antique equipment to recreate 18th and 19th century home-produced textiles. She began her textile study with Scottish master weaver Norman Kennedy back in 1980 and carries on his rich tradition in her own teaching. Melissa is an avid tartan and linen weaver, a compulsive knitter, and a lover of wool who enjoys sharing her passion for weaving and spinning with students. She's also a ballad singer, specializing in the ballads and songs of Ireland, Scotland, and England from before Napoleon's time. Welcome, Melissa Weaver Dunning. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
I am super excited about this challenge. It's our very first weaving challenge.
Well, I'm pretty excited too.
So, what can you tell us about this challenge, Melissa?
So, even though my background is in historic textiles, I got really interested in Rigid-Heddle looms, and especially as a tool that hand spinners can use to enter into the world of weaving. They're not very expensive, they're easy to use, and they have very little waste. The yarn that you tie on with at both ends that you usually can't really use, but in our case, we can come pretty close to that. So we're going to, for our woolly weaving challenge, we're going to weave a scarf. I'm going to focus on Rigid-Heddle techniques, but I will absolutely mention floor loom techniques as they apply, and because that's like my primary basis. So, and I know you are all going to be interested in or wondering what kind of yarn you're going to need for this challenge. And the first program, we're going to talk about spinning for weaving and types of yarn and planning a warp and all that in great detail. But just while we're getting started, I had a few things I wanted to say. First of all, the warp yarn that you wind onto the loom, the long threads, that warp yarn needs to be strong. A 2-ply yarn is good. If you're a very experienced spinner, you could consider using a worsted type yarn. And a worsted single would be okay if you can spin a nice strong worsted single. And for everybody, long wools might be your best choice for that. So for SE to SE yarns, that would be Cotswold, Leicester long wool, Lincoln, Teeswater. So these are all good warp yarns, although any kind of wool that is a nice sturdy 2-ply will be just fine. And
I might interject that we didn't say what we're making, which is determines why you're choosing the yarns that you're choosing.
Did I not say the word scarf?
I don't think so. I may have missed it, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows we're looking for something that you're gonna want to have against your neck.
Right. So we're going to weave a scarf, and of course, we're going to use SE to SE yarns. And these can be either hand-spun yarns from SE to SE fiber or yarn that you buy directly from a producer that's having yarn commercially spun out of their applicable fiber. So, okay. So back to yarn. Grist is the density of a yarn. It factors in both the circumference and the weight of a yarn. And spinners and weavers talk about grist with the acronym YPP, or yards per pound. So it's just one of the ways that we look at a yarn and say, well, we think it's this size, it's going to work up this kind of way. Spinners and knitters also talk about wraps per inch, which is abbreviated WPI. And you determine the wraps per inch by gently wrapping around a dowel, a ruler. I like to use a little 6-inch ruler because there are my inches just right there. But there are also woodworkers who make tools that are specifically for that purpose. And weavers talk about ends per inch. So when we make our warp and put it on the loom, there will be so many threads per inch on the loom, and that's ends per inch. So for our woolly weaving challenge, the warp yarn that will be needed to make a 10-inch scarf, 10 inches wide, for fingering weight yarn, that will be about 400 yards, and you'll need a rigid heddle that has 12 ends per inch, 12 slots and holes combined in an inch. To use a DK sport weight yarn, something in that neighborhood, we'll need 330 yards, and you'll want to use a 10 dent rigid heddle. And for a worsted size yarn, you'll need about 270 yards, and we'll use an 8 ends per inch rigid heddle for that project. Now, all of these things are variable, not the yards needed so much, but if you have a thicker yarn, but you want to set it closely and really show off that yarn, you might use have more dents per inch. Use a word. You might want to set it more closely. You can also choose to use a light yarn, like a fingering type yarn, and have it be kind of open and weave an open cloth. So there are lots of options, and we'll talk about that in more detail at our first actual program. And I just wanted to mention what the plan is for these 3 programs we're going to have. The first one, spinning for weaving, types of yarn, planning a warp, and figuring out the yardage needed. So for your individual yarn, how we'll go about that. And there will be worksheets to help you, because I find that really helpful. For the second program, I'm going to demonstrate direct warping on a Rigid-Heddle loom, which is a remarkably easy way to get your warp threads onto the loom. Very few tools, and it's just, you'll be amazed and hopefully delighted. And I'll also talk about weaving tips, about the actual weaving. And for the third program, I plan to talk about finishing, hems, fringe options, also wet finishing, steaming, and or pressing, which are all options. And we'll definitely talk about planning your next project, how to build on the success of your first project. So that's the plan for our woolly weaving scarf challenge.
That sounds great. Thank you, Melissa. So give me an idea of the rough dimensions, finished dimensions of this scarf. What will that look like?
So we're looking at about 10 inches wide, and for the finished scarf to be about 60 inches long. I normally plan a scarf for about 60 inches plus 6 inches of fringe at each end. But you also have the option, if you prefer, of hemming your scarf, either to have a little tiny short fringe or to just actually sew a fringe, turn it under and sew it.
This sounds awesome. I am a complete novice, know nothing about weaving yet, so I'm really looking forward to watching and learning with you. Thank you so much for doing this for us. So let me give you some details. The challenge will begin, the very first night of the challenge, what Melissa's talking about, program 1, is Wednesday, October 5th. And we're going to run these every other Wednesday for 3 sessions. So really, if you think about it, you got kind of like 5 or 6 weeks to do this. But there's never, with these challenges, there's never a hard finished by time period, because we leave the Facebook group and the Ravelry threads open, and you can continue to post your photos and your progress along the way, even after the last class. The second class, so the first class is Wednesday, October 5th. The second class will be Wednesday, October 19th. And we are concluding on Wednesday, November 2nd. So in time to give one of these away as a Christmas gift, and maybe or Hanukkah gift or Kwanzaa gift, whatever holiday or birthday you might want to celebrate. And maybe even get a second one done before then as well. What other details can I give you? Okay, so we're running these live on Zoom and Facebook. So if you're not a Facebook user, you can definitely attend these live sessions on Zoom. And we have created a behind the scenes woolly weaving. That is a bit of a tongue twister, isn't it? Why do I do that to myself? We created a behind the scenes woolly weaving challenge webpage. as part of our Livestock Conservancy website. So once you join the Woolly Weaving Challenge, you will receive a confirmation email that gives you a link to that private website. And that private website will have all of the details, the dates, the times, the subjects that Melissa just shared with you. It will also provide the Zoom links. It will provide the link to the Facebook group, and it will also have Melissa's resource document there for download as well as if you wanted to download the official rules. Although, as far as rules, it's pretty simple. One rule: use an SE2 SE breed or multiple SE2 SE breeds, of which there are 24 now on the conservation priority list. We did add British Soay earlier this year, so that's another option. You can get as creative as you want with color and texture, and the word is not pattern. The word is, did you say draft?
Draft.
Draft.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cinder was asking me if I was going to provide links for patterns or suggestions. And I said, well, in the weaving world, we usually refer to those as a draft. It's just a plan for weaving. And for what we're doing, just a plain weave scarf, I'm going to talk you all the way through it. You don't really need more than that. However, if you're an experienced weaver, you have the option, of course, of using any sort of weave structure you want that you are able to do with your equipment. But basically, we're going to be talking about plain weave and how to show off hand spun.
Yeah. With these wonderful SE2 SE breeds. Let's see. Did I mention the cost to participate is $20? I mentioned the Facebook and Ravelry groups. We just mentioned fiber. Only rule. Time. Melissa, what time did we agree to?
I think it was 7 p.m. Eastern time.
That's what I had too, but I wanted you to say it just to make sure I had it right.
That's good.
All right. So 7 p.m. Eastern. I hope you guys will join us. This is going to be a really fun challenge. I'm super excited Melissa was available to teach this for us. Thank you so much. Really looking forward to this. If you have any questions, please let us know. Sign up will begin on Thursday of this week at rarewool.org, www.rarewool.org. There you go. And you are looking for the SE2 SE Weaving Challenge. Once you sign up, if you want to join the Facebook group, this will be the challenge group name in Facebook if you want to join that. All right. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Please reach out and let us know if you have any questions. You can reach me through rarewool.org or the Livestock Conservancy Facebook group, the Shave 'em to Save 'em Facebook group, or info@livestockconservancy.org. We hope to see you in the challenge. Thanks and have a great night. Thanks, Melissa.
You're welcome. I'm looking forward to this.